Um, I didn't ask for this person to stop by, but he did. And I said, well, Pat, why in the world do you suppose that he came to me? He says, probably because he realized that you could hear him. So, okay, that's fine. No problem.
As long as it makes sense.
uh, yeah, maybe somebody will drop by tonight while we're on and want to talk to one of us. Who knows?
Okay.
I said, who knows? uh, I know we were talking a little bit before we got on the air, and Barbara had some great things to talk about. So she's got a bunch of questions. I'll let her jump right in. Maybe. Barbara.
Did she fall off now?
I had to shut my window, or you
Oh,
would be hearing even more background.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Tabby and I were talking before the show regarding genetic memory and what that means for, well, for people in general. It's not just what your great grandfather did, although that's part of the process here, but it's not just familial. It could possibly be generational things as well, right, Tabby?
Yes, definitely. I began to question whether or not some of the things that I remembered were perhaps past life, because I've never done any kind of past life regression, so I don't know. But I realized that over the years, there were some things that I liked, um, like foods, uh, colors, flowers, scents, things like that, that I found out that either my mother liked, my grandmother liked, and a few foods that I had no clue that my father absolutely loved. And I had developed a taste for them and absolutely love them. And it isn't because I ever saw him eat them or anything, but yet for some reason I thought, wow, I think my dad would like this. And then I found out, he did like it, like sardines. My father loved sardines.
Ooh.
And evidently my mother didn't like him to eat them in the house because they would stink. She'd make him throw the can outside rather than inside. But I didn't know my father liked sardines. I had no clue. And over the years, I, decided, I really do like sardines. I tried them, love them. And I found out from an uncle before he passed away, he says, your father absolutely loved sardines. Sardines and crackers. That's what he would have. Really. I also found out that, and I had no clue why, nobody else in my family liked cottage cheese. But I have always loved cottage cheese. And I found out that my maternal grandfather absolutely swore by it. I mean, he ate it at just about every meal. I didn't know that. He passed away in 1963 when I was only 8 years old, and don't really remember too many meals except for holiday meals. So I didn't know my grandfather liked cottage cheese. So, yeah, you can develop your own tastes and everything, but it always tasted familiar. The sardines tasted familiar. The cottage cheese tasted familiar. Um, Certain perfumes that I had no idea that my grandmother loved, and only found out from my mother years later that she wore those. I don't know. It could have been something that I picked up as a child, but I don't think so. But why is it that some things that I really, really love like, why do I relate to big band music? I wasn't born in the 1920s or even the 30s to enjoy big band music, but for some reason it resonates with me.
Hmm.
And I love it now. I mean, I can't get enough of it.
Hmm.
So, where did that come from?
Well, here's a question for you. I don't know whether a lot of people have done this or not, but the genetic testing kits, which actually tell you what you're predisposed for, well, disease-wise, but it also talks to you about whether or not you're lactose intolerant, whether you have um, a sensitivity to caffeine and all that other lovely stuff. So, I'm
No,
wondering if, have you done the genetic testing at all?
no, no,
Mhm.
not me. As a matter of fact, I've never even bothered to go through and find out ancestors, like through Ancestry or Heritage or uh, what is it, the DNA, whatever
Yeah.
those places are. I've never bothered to do that, even though they have them on half price a lot of times. I can already tell you where I came from.
Hmm.
I'm just like a bottle of ketchup. I'm Heinz 57 varieties. I don't need to spend $100 for anybody to tell me that I'm a mutt. I'm an admixture of a whole lot of things, and I know exactly where my family came from.
Right.
All I have to do is just look on my family line, and I can tell you exactly where my people came from. So I don't need to spend money to find out that I have Welsh in me. I already know that. I don't need to spend money to find out that I've got a tad bit of French in me. I already know that. So I think the only thing that a lot of people use those type of things for is, I guess, to reach out to relatives,
Hmm.
um, to find cousins and uh, second cousins, and who knows. It's also kind of a nasty thing when you find out, hey, I've got a half brother somewhere I didn't even know I had.
Well, yeah.
Um, that's kind of scary. Um, but yeah, it when you consider that you are the sum of everybody that came before you, your cells are made up of everybody that came before you. And so when you are uh, pre I can't pronounce the word predisposed. Yeah, I think it's predisposed to have like heart disease or diabetes,
Mhm.
or if cancer runs in the family or Alzheimer's runs in the family. It's because it's passed down through your DNA,
Right.
through cells. So, considering that your brain is also made up of cells, why can we not inherit through our DNA the memories of those who came before us? Why would that be so difficult for people to accept?
I don't know the answer to that one. I do know that there are predispositions for, like, they found in the studies that Holocaust survivors and their descendants have a lower cortisol level. Cortisol is what helps you bounce back from stress and trauma. And so these genetic memories can do that part, which is, you're predisposed to this because somewhere down the line there was a big shock that you're in for generations. It's going to change your makeup, your genetic makeup. Um, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
yeah. So it is possible that I think what you're referring to, a lot of it too, is the collective unconscious that Jung talked about. which is why not
Yes.
that you don't have those memories. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes complete sense that, there's this whole, and probably, Tabby, don't you think that they're sort of like clusters of people that relate across lifetimes, so that you were already still in that little cluster,
Yes.
that's also sort of a collective unconscious in itself?
Yes. Yes. I think that's quite possibly the case also. Um, as you pointed out, people from that go through a great deal of traumatic stress in their life. And even if they don't share that experience with, say, a grandchild, because they don't want to, they don't feel that it's necessary to, they don't want to, put a burden on them or anything like that. And yet, for some reason, that grandchild will suddenly find themselves absolutely and totally petrified at the smell of some type of a gasoline.
Mhm.
Or suddenly they are totally petrified at the sight of fire, that sort of thing. And they don't really understand why. So it's something that could be just passed down. Um, I have a fear of water. Um, I don't like to be in the water. Um, say, seawater,
Mhm.
green water, in other words. I can get in the shallow end of a swimming pool, but that's about it. Um, I have a great fear of drowning. Always have, ever since I was a child. I never had any bad experiences that I'm aware of. I had talked to my sister about it. She doesn't remember me having any kind of a bad experience with water. Yet for some reason, I am absolutely petrified of water. The idea of drowning. Where that came from, I don't know. But I did find out that there's more than a good possibility that a relative on my mother's side actually was on the Titanic.
Really?
And they died on the Titanic. His name is listed in among the dead. So I don't know. And I've always been fascinated with the Titanic. I found an old book in my great aunt's barn. And I was only maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9, something like that. And I've always been fascinated with the Titanic ever since. And I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's why I have an inherent fear of the water, because a relative drowned.
Hmm. Well, I know I don't like to be in water that's over my head, you might say, or that I can't have my head above the water and touch the bottom. I've been out on boats, but as long as I'm not in the water, I'm not too bad. But I wouldn't want to take a
I can't
boat.
even be on the water.
Well,
That's how bad it is. I don't even like to be on a boat. I can look at the water and, green water and get up, get into it up to, say, my ankles. Other than that, I won't go in seawater. I can't do it. Cannot do it.
yeah, I wouldn't want
And
to.
it freaks me out to go over top of a bridge.
I wouldn't want to go across the ocean or something like that in a boat, or do
Oh,
those I guess over to the
nope.
islands and stuff like that.
No, no, no.
I can't do that. In big cruise ships, no.
Nope.
Uh,
Nope.
I have no
Yeah,
trouble
if
with that.
somebody were to offer me $1 million to get on a ship and go overseas, they'd have to knock me out for the entire duration. I
Wow.
would not be able to be aware of anything
So,
to collect that $1 million.
so essentially, just go, just
Jeff, you bopped out there.
just going to boost. Oh, I said essentially you would just go on a booze cruise, just stay drunk.
Yeah, stay drunk, stay out, just
Now, when I
completely
was a
obliterated.
child, our family visited Europe for 9 weeks, and we came back on a 5-day trip on the Queen Elizabeth.